Chapter 20, Hannah. I got into a wicked fight with my parents and now I'm grounded. Seems my father ended up behind Crystal's brother in 7-Eleven yesterday, and of course Crystal's brother had been drinking, so he smelled like it, and then he was dumb enough to say something to the counter guy about throwing one more kicker in the woods before I got to cold. So my father came home and started questioning me about what type of behavior went on in Crystal's house anyway. I shrugged. I don't know, me and Crystal have our own stuff to do. Then he said, well, I don't want you going down there for a while. If you want to see Crystal, you two can hang around here. And I should have let it go because it probably would have slipped his mind, but like a jerk I didn't. I don't want to hang out here, there's nothing to do. You can do the same things here that you do there, my father said, and now he was starting to sound testy because it was supper time and he was hungry and tired from work, and I don't know, maybe he just expected me to fold and turn into some meek kid, but that's not how I felt. Why are you punishing me? I didn't do anything wrong. God, what am I supposed to do, just die here alone? Hannah, he said in a warning tone. I glanced at my mom and she gave me a look that said, be quiet, but I couldn't. It's not fair. You guys already chose your life. And now what? I'm not allowed to go and find mine? I don't want to get stuck here doing stupid, boring things. I want to go out. I know you do, my mother said. We understand, Hannah. We were young once, too. I hate when adults say that. I do. They always say it when they're trying to shut down your life and stop you from having fun. I mean, if they know what I want, then why do they keep getting in the way? I could be so much worse, and it's like they don't even know it. They get surprised whenever they realize I might not be exactly who they think I am, but there are parts of my life that are mine, my secret hopes and dreams and hurts and tragedies, things that if the robber guy had killed me that day, they would never have known because I've never even said them out loud. Or that there's stuff about me that only Crystal and Sammy know, or experiences that I've had only with Jesse or Seth would know about. They only know the Hannah I want them to know. They're only allowed to see what I show them, and all the life-changing stuff except for being robbed is my own personal business. I'm not a little girl anymore. I want my own life, and yeah, I'm probably going to make mistakes, but they're my mistakes. I don't try to hurt anybody or lie or anything, but sometimes I have to just get what I need. And if they really remembered what 16 was like, they'd remember that too. Anyway, the argument got stupider, and I got more frustrated and really mouthy, and my father got really mad and grounded me for a week. Joy. I'm still grounded, but I'm allowed to go over to Grand's to help feed the animals, so today I did because I ran out of stuff to read and figured if I'd see if she had anything good because she belongs to like 5 book clubs and gets books in the mail almost every day. Well, I found out she had to quit all of them because she doesn't have the money thanks to crappy insurance and her medication being so expensive, which really sucks because now all she's reading are Parkinson's real-life stories and Back to the Land biographies written by people who ditched civilization and were apparently supremely happy living independently in the country. I already live in the country, and right now I'm not very happy, so I borrowed a couple of old murder mysteries from the bookcase instead. When we wandered outside, Sarepta came too, although she gave me a puzzled look that she'd never seen me before and crept under a shrub. She's getting old, Gran said, holding onto the porch railing and gingerly lowering herself to the step. Her knees crinkled and crunched, and her hand was making this unnerving rolling motion that I was trying to pretend I didn't notice until she noticed me not noticing her. Horrible, isn't it? She said, holding up the hand and watching it quiver. I hate it. Does it hurt? I said cautiously. It doesn't, she said and shrugged. I didn't know what to say, so I just leaned against the railing and gazed out at the pond. Look, the does are back there. They don't even know how little time they have left. She scratched her knee. Do you think it's worse knowing it's coming even though you have time to make arrangements and say goodbye? Or is it worse to die quick and unexpected? Quick and unexpected, I said without hesitation, adding silently, and in a greasy Olympia sub-shop apron. I would rather have time to say goodbye. I guess so, she said, sighing, glanced over at the hunting cabin next door. I hate knowing there's nothing I can do to save them, not even for an hour, not even for a day. At least they're safe here, I said, and then finally remembered to tell her about feeding the deer hay instead of corn in winter. She didn't get as upset as I thought she would, only nodded, so we hung out a little longer and we were both in quiet moods. So I left soon after that and followed the path through the break in the wood separating out the back acres from theirs. There was no wind and I could hear my footsteps. I could hear each leaf falling leaf touchdown. I could hear the wasps buzzing as I passed the dilapidated old wood barn. The sunlight was thin and the air still and the trees still, and the oddest thought, it's a hell of a thing, but I didn't know what that meant, only that it felt like the land was waiting, just waiting, like it knew everything was changing, and that was a dumb thought because of course it did. The birds knew, the animals knew, so did the plants and trees because it was autumn, for God's sake. Soon it would be winter, but still, by the time I made it up our back steps and into the house, I started feeling like I was waiting on the change of a season too. Last day of grounding, so I took the books back to Gran. It was a chillier day. There was a wind and the wasps were gone. I passed her garden and scared up a flock of finches who must have been feasting on all the flowers and weeds and old tomatoes gone to seed. That was the first time I can remember that Gran didn't open her door wide and automatically invite me in. She was in sweats and slippers and looked like she'd been crying, which freaked me out because I'm so used to her being strong that I didn't know what to say. It didn't really matter though, because she took the books, she was aching bad, and she hoped I didn't mind she wasn't going feeding up to company. So of course I was like, no problem, and on my way back I walked up on a doe standing motionless in the tree line without even seeing her until she broke and ran, with a big white fluffy tail waving to signal danger. I wanted to tell her, no, stop, I'm not one of the dangerous ones, but she didn't give me the chance. It's a weird time, or maybe it's just me. I sliced a chunk of my shin this morning, shaving my legs. It bled and hurt so bad that I can't even imagine what it must be like to have a razor-tipped arrow sliced into your guts. I hate bow hunting season, and I hate waking up in the dark. I hate walking down the driveway in the wooded part of the road to the bus stop in my stupid pink hat, afraid that someone just a little sleepy or nearsighted might mistake my hair for a deer and draw a bead on my spine, because for some reason that's always how I think of it, as an arrow shattering my spine. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm thinking of the robbery again now too, when the mornings are so cold and dark and triumphant hunters drive by the bus stop, hauling bloody carcasses with lolling heads in the beds of their pickup trucks. Grim. Chapter 21, Hannah. I think Seth might finally like me again. He had a free period, so he stopped by my locker. I cut class, so we ended up hanging out in the upstairs hall, leaning against the window ledge next to each other. The whole time I was absorbing his details, the shape of his hands, his fingertips calloused from playing the guitar, the way the bottom of his wavy hair was summer sun blonde, mingling threads and fading up to darker winter blonde. His eyes, not a clear blue, but a smudgy one, and how even sitting, my shoulder was inches below his, perfect for resting my head against if the opportunity ever came up. And lots of kids passed by on the way to the staircase, gave us interested looks, said hi, which was funny after a while, because we both knew so many people that we started making bets on who the next one would be, one of mine, one of his, or an unclaimed neutral. So what do I get if I win? He said, giving me a dangerous smile. A hearty handshake? I said brightly. Get the H out of here, he said, laughing. Okay, I said, pushing off the windowsill like I was leaving. Get back here, he said, catching hold of my wrist. Am I going to have to hold on to you to keep you from running out on me? I don't know, let me go and let's find out, I said, cocking my head and giving him a sparkling look from under my lashes. I don't think so, he said, sliding his fingers through mine and holding my hand. He caught sight of a couple of guys heading towards us and grinning. He raised our linked hands and said, how are you doing? What's up, Seth? I said, giving him this really cheesy congratulatory grins. 3 more from me, he said smugly when they passed. Maybe, but you're starting a rumor, I said, giving our hands a pointed look. So, he said, glancing at me, do you care? And what I wanted to shout was, make it more than a rumor, make it a reality. But what I was actually doing was shrugging and saying, hey, if you don't care, I don't care. Okay, then, he said, waved our linked hands at kids 4 more times, which put me 3 kids behind him, and the bell rang before I could recoup my losses. Woman, you are now my love slave, he said, rising and releasing me. I'll think about it, I said, fluffing my hair and tucking it back behind my ears. What's the job description? He laughed and fell into step beside me. You do whatever I want you to do. So far no good. Pay? None. I snorted. No wonder you're having trouble filling the position. What about the benefits? You want benefits too? He said, grinning. Well, yeah, because so far I don't get anything at all, I said. You get me, he said, nudging my arm. My heart skipped and I caught my breath, and for a second all sound stopped and the air simmered, and I almost said, okay. I almost showed my whole hand, and I wondered if some dippy sophomore in blue eyeshadow hadn't bumped into me hard and knocked me right out of the moment. Sorry, she mumbled, ducking and slipping past. Nothing like watching where you're going, shaking my head. I crossed the hall to my locker and got my history book. Well, oh no you don't, he said. You're not getting away that easy. Come on, I'll walk you to class. So he did, and even though I didn't see him again for the rest of the day, the last thing he said was, you know I won fair and square. That should get me something. Oh, I'm sure it will, I said. I just don't know what yet. I do, he said with a slow, sexy smile. Bye, I said, laughing and heading into class. I can't even believe it. All I have to do to get him is pretend I don't want him. Seth was stoned in school today, and Connor told me he had to go sit out in Phil's car, just so he wouldn't get snagged and suspended. Then he told me that Seth was having a hard time at home, and his parents were thinking about taking him out of St. Ignat's and sending him to public school instead. Well, that would suck, I said. Connor looked at me and said, like he was trying to gauge something, "You should go out and see him," he said finally. "Me?" I said, surprised. "Why?" "Do me a favor and just go," he said. "I think if he needs a friend right about now." A friend. Great. But I went, of course. Seth was lying down in the back of Phil's car, so I climbed into the shotgun seat. "Hey," I said, not even bothering to sit up. "Where you been hiding?" "Oh, I've been around," I said, more than a little freaked out at how out of it he was. "What's going on with you?" He grunted and closed his eyes. "Too much crap." "Do you maybe want to talk about it?" I said, leaning over the seat and nudging him into opening his eyes. I'm a decent listener, and a fool because, yes, I still wanted him. "You're a decent everything," he said, and then shook his head and gazed up at the ceiling. "I'm pretty effed up," he laughed without humor. "Runs in the family." "Hmm?" I said, settling my chin on the back of the seat and watching him. "Oh yeah," he said, and then was quiet for a while. When he finally spoke, he didn't look at me. "I don't get you." "What's not to get?" I said lightly. He snorted, and this time he did smile, still without looking at me. "Forget it." "No, really, what?" I said, leaning over and poking him. "Tell me." He caught hold of my arm and then slid his hand down to cover mine, gazed at our hands as if debating, then ran his thumb gently across my knuckles. "You're nice." "Is that a bad thing?" I said, watching him. "You always look happy," he said, frowning. "And," I said, "you are definitely not who I thought you were." "So is that good or bad?" I said, and waited, heart thumping, to discover my fate. "I don't know yet." I must have made a little noise as the blade sank into my heart, because he blinked and glanced at me, saw my face, and said, "No, I don't mean that in a bad way. Not you. I mean it to me." He shook his head. "Crap, I really didn't want to. Look, it's not you." "Okay, I get it." My voice was rusty. "You don't have to say any more. I just forget it." "No, you're thinking wrong. I can see it. You're nice, Hannah." He stopped and seemed to struggle with something. "I'm not, okay?" "What? Nice?" I said, surprised. "Yes, you are." He shook his head, refusing to meet my gaze. "Every time I go to ask you out, I think, yeah, okay, she's a major flirt. She knows what's up. She knows how to play the game. And then you give me that big smile or you say something that totally throws me a curve, and then I'm like, crap, maybe not." And he cleared his throat. "So you're saying I'm too nice?" I said flatly. "No," he said, looking at me now. "I'm saying you're nice, and I don't want to F that up, okay? And if we go out, I will. Because I always do." He looked away again and ran a hand through his hair. "Then why did Connor even send me out here?" I said. He was silent for a long moment. I told him to. "Why?" I said. "I almost didn't," he said in a low voice. "But you did," I said, laying my hand on his arm and smiling when he finally looked at me, because there was something there. I could feel it. Even if it took all I had, I wasn't going to let it go. "So why?" His smoky blue eyes shining, and he muttered, "Oh," and he looked away, and he was laughing a little when he did it, like he was embarrassed, and then he swallowed hard and saw his Adam's apple bob, and he said, "You sure you want to do this?" I said, "Do what?" And then he laughed to himself again like he couldn't believe he was going to do this, and my heart started pounding so loud I could hardly hear him when he looked at me with a crooked, bittersweet smile and said, "So do you want to go out with me, Hannah?" "Yes." Chapter 22. Helen. It's done. The truth I've never dared speak to anyone but Lon is actually down now in writing. It was Lon's idea to send it away and make it into a real book because Hannah always borrows those. The thing is, she doesn't read nonfiction, so I had to think further. I wanted her to listen. I wanted her to understand. And because I was doing so poorly and missed her so much, the fear of losing her fell under the need to sit with her through this story, just like I had when I told all those other stories. This was the one that counted. So I sent my words, my secrets, to a narrator, and they came back as an audiobook. Chapter 23. Hannah. We spent the rest of the day in Phil's back seat. My yes did something, unlocked him somehow, and he dropped his distant Seth self, and turned into, I don't know, sweet sexy Seth, who wrapped me in his arms and blew my mind. All those pent-up emotions came out in sighs and whispers, and touching and stroking, murmuring each other's names, laughing softly, being able to lean against him the way I'd wanted to for so long. To feel his arms holding me so tight it was like he would never let me go, hearing him say things like, "I can't believe I'm doing this," and they came out kind of hesitant at first, like he was wondering at it, and his bewilderment made me a little sad for him and also love him all the more. We talked some, too, during those up-for-air moments. I told him all kinds of important things about my life because I wanted him to know about me, and I wanted to know about him, too. I told him about my parents separating when I was little, but how they were okay now, and the sub shop robbery, how Gran had come to my grandmother, and how she and Grandpa had met. I told him about her stray cat condos on the porch, and he said, So she's a crazy cat lady, and I said, no, not at all, and tried to explain why she's taking care of them mattered, and how we had a kind of sanctuary there, for deer too. But halfway through he started kissing my neck, and I lost track of everything but him, which I think, when it comes to true love, is exactly how it should be. I don't know what I love more, being Seth's girlfriend or the surprise on people's faces at school when they see us with our arms around each other. Sammy's been tracking all the reactions, and in these last 2 days it's ranged from bets we won't last more than a month to some sophomore wearing blue eyeshadow crying in the bathroom after we walked by on that first day with our arms around each other. Bizarre. We met between classes, used each other's lockers, ate together, hung out together, and were pretty much inseparable. It felt amazing being able to walk into the cafe and meet his gaze, to be able to write Hannah and Seth TLF all over my books, to be able to turn to someone and say, have you seen Seth? When I was looking for him, and have somebody in class nudge me and to look to the door to see him standing out in the hall, smiling and waiting on me. On our 1-week anniversary, Seth bought a blue second-hand SUV. He had to get a job to pay for gas and insurance, so he's going to be working in a bowling alley near his house 4 nights a week, and unfortunately Saturday daytime. But we now have a place of our own where we can be alone, as long as we find a private place to park it. Making out in lust is great, but making out in love is stellar. And the two of us wrapped together in the back seat, his hand slipping under my jacket, under my shirt, pushing up my bra, finally closing around me, all the while straining against me and me against him, wanting but not taking, because it wasn't just something to do but me and him, and it mattered because we thought of each other when it was over. At least it did to me, because when he said to me that day how I knew how to play the game, how I'd been around, and never actually left me. And sometimes when I saw him smiling at other girls or walked up on him joking around with them, or he walked up on me joking with other guys, I thought about that, about the difference between a guy's reputation and a girl's, and yeah, it bothered me. So even though I really wanted to do was say I love you and rip his clothes off and let him rip mine off, I went slow. And I have to say it was a blast. We had our first fight. I guess it was my fault, because he's right. I know how he is, and I shouldn't have come up on him and that blue eyeshadow wearing sophomore Lacey McMullen with such a beat attitude, but it's too late now. You know how you can look at the same thing every day for weeks, think nothing of it, and then all of a sudden something in your mind clicks and you realize there's something very wrong with this picture? Like when you were busy thinking nothing of it, your subconscious knew otherwise and was connecting dots, so you would finally realize the threat? Well, what I noticed was Lacey McMullen, the giant, sparkling cow eyes rimmed in bright blue eyeshadow, a substantial set of boobs, flushed cheeks, a perky, eager smile, and very strange tendency to be hovering on the outskirts every time I turned around. No, not every time I turned around, every time I was with Seth and turned around. And the worst thing was, I knew that look. It was anticipation, even though the odds were against you. It was being ready and waiting for that instant, unexpected opportunity. That did not bode well, especially after I pointed her out to Sammy, who said, yeah, she's the one who was crying in the bathroom when she found out you two were going out. Great. The only good part was that he didn't seem to know she existed, or so I thought until I got out of gym early, walked to the cafe, and saw him leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets and her standing in front of him, laughing and wrapping his necktie around her finger. I strode over, eyebrows high and wearing a serious beat face, because flirting was one thing, but touching quite another. She saw me coming, let go of his tie, and stepped back but didn't leave. That irritated me even more, so I looked at him and said, am I interrupting something? Which turned out to be the absolute wrong thing to say. Well, yeah, actually you are, he said coolly, and that was like knives in my stomach, because she was still standing there, soaking it all up. So I gave her a look that said, get the H out of here now. She looked past me at him. He nodded and said, I'll catch up with you later, and then she sauntered off. I couldn't believe it. Take a walk with me? I said with a tight smile. Sure, he said with absolutely no warmth in his voice at all, and ambled out of the cafeteria after me, not even trying to catch up or hold my hand. So what was that all about? I said, pushing open a door and opening in an empty stairwell. He shrugged. Nothing. Really, I said, and hated the shaky hurt in my voice. He must have heard it too, because his remote expression faded. What do you want me to say, Hannah? Oops, you caught me talking to another girl? Come on. He pulled me into his arms and went stiffly, filled with frustration, but I went. It was no big deal. She's just a kid who has a crush on you, I mumbled. And bingo, that was another wrong thing, because he laughed and said, yeah, I know, but so what? That doesn't mean I have a crush on her. I said, unwinding enough to put my arms around him. So I hang out with her sometimes, so what? It doesn't mean anything, he said, tilting my face up and catching sight of my tear-filled eyes. Oh, come on, don't. He kissed me. Shh, come on, don't you know that I love you? I went still and searched his gaze. Really? Yeah, he said, laughing as I threw my arms around his neck. Yeah, Hannah baby, I do. 2 nights later, parked at our spot, he slid a hand down into my jeans and put my hand into his. and it was tight maneuvering on both parts, so he actually unzipped, and I got my first real feel of him. He put his hand around my hand and showed me how to move it, and then he slid his hand back down into my pants and started kissing me wildly. My hand was moving, and his was moving, and both of us were breathing loud, and his hand hit the right spot on me in passing, and I arched up into it, and I guess that really made him crazy, because maybe 4 seconds after that, he totally lost it and collapsed on me, gasping and laughing. He brushed my sweaty hair from my cheeks, looked into my eyes and said, "You're so beautiful," and then with his hand still down there, said, "Now you." But I got shy and would have said no if he hadn't started kissing me again. It got so hot that I actually put my hand on his and showed him where and how. And when it happened, he was exultant and said he'd never done that for anybody before. I said, "Me neither," and that meant we had a real first together. My father was called back to work, and my mother says that when there's more money coming in, maybe we can start fixing up the basement so me and Seth can have a place to hang out. Plus, my mother says Gran has discovered books on tape, and now Grandpa goes to the library for her and brings home as many audiobooks as he can check out. She's still into books about Parkinson's, Back to the Land, or homeopathy, but she's been branching out to old-time biographies too. I haven't been to see Gran in a while, too long actually, and while I'm really not into audiobooks, she does still have bookcases of regular novels I haven't read yet. They're going to come in handy because Seth practices the guitar a lot when we're together, so I have a feeling I'll be reading just to pass the time. It's kind of cool to be that comfortable with each other so quickly. We had Gran and Grandpa over for dinner Sunday, and it was quiet as my father was tired from working overtime, and my mother was concentrated about Gran, who was having trouble forming words fast enough for anyone to connect them into a sentence. Grandpa stayed close by her now, always there in case she needed him, doing some kind of stepping thing in front of her when her feet froze in position and couldn't make herself walk, supporting her when she first got up because her balance was getting really bad, and the sight of that made me want to cry, which I did, but not until later when I was alone. I think I'm going to go over to Gran's and ask her if she knows why my parents separated way back when. I get the idea that it wasn't because of cheating, but then what else could it have been? Money? We never had a lot, and they worry about the bills and stuff, but that doesn't seem like such a big deal either. So why then? I called first to see if she was up for a visit, and I could tell by just how long it took her to form each slurred word that it was not a good day. So when she finally said no, I was disappointed but not surprised. "Then can I ask you a question?" I said, getting up off the bed and shutting my bedroom door just in case my mother came upstairs. "Sure," Gran said after a moment. "Okay, well, remember back when my parents separated? Do you know why they did? I don't need all the details or anything, but nobody ever told me why." I sank to the edge of the bed and waited, gazing at my reflection in the full-length mirror of the closet door. "Ask them," she said after a long pause. I shook my head. "No, I can't. That's never talked about. What if I bring it up and it starts something bad all over again? I don't want to do that. Can't you just tell me, please?" "Why dig up the past?" she said finally. "Because it's my past too. It's my family history. And I think I'm old enough to know," I said promptly, because I was ready for that one. "Did ask your mother," she said, struggling hard with each word. "It's not my story to tell." I pulled back, looked at the cell phone, and it stuck back into my car. To my ear. "What?" "Only they know the real reason," she said. "Do you understand?" "No," I said, because I couldn't believe that out of all the stuff we'd talked about, this was the one thing she was not going to tell me. "Come on, Gran, please." "I can't," she said. "I don't know." OMG. "Well, then why do you think they split up? Can you at least give me a clue?" "Hannah," she said my name on a sigh like the conversation was ending. "Wait," I said frantically. "Was it because of cheating?" "No," she said. "Life." "What? What does that mean? I don't get it." "Ask your mother," she said, sounding exhausted. "I have to rest. Bye." "But, okay, bye, I guess." I sat there for a long time after she hung up, trying to figure out what the H just happened. Gran had never put me off, never not answered my questions, any question, especially an important one like that. Why had she told me to go to ask my mother? I couldn't ask my mother. It was too dangerous a subject, and could cause some type of subterranean rumble beneath what had felt like pretty solid ground ever since they got back together. I didn't know what to do, so finally I just got up and tried to shut the closet door, but it was too jammed with stuff, so I gave up, leaving the door cracked open, and went downstairs to set the table for supper.